Good morning to you. Welcome. This is the Voice of the People, 96.1 FM. I am Gesiri Agua. You're welcome to the arena. This is a platform where we check out some of our trending political and current affairs headlines. We touchlight one of them, look at that, and see how it affects us as Nigerians. We x-ray it with the guest and see how it affects us as Nigerians and Nigeria as a whole. So the federal government has unveiled their plans to bring back 12,400 japa doctors. The president, sometime last 2 weeks, approved the national policy on health workforce migration to address the continued exodus of Nigerian doctors abroad. The policy, announced by the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Pate, on his X handle on Tuesday, aims to woo an estimated 12,400 Nigerian trained doctors practicing abroad. According to Pate, who appeared on television, he said 67% of Nigerian trained doctors are practicing in the United Kingdom alone. The recruitment countries that recruit our professionals, should they not have some responsibilities to help us expand the training? Because the strain of health workers migration is continuous. It's not going to stop tomorrow. The UK will need Nigerian doctors. 67% of our doctors go to the United Kingdom, and 25% of the NHIS workforce is Nigerian. Nigerians are very vibrant, very entrepreneurial, and very capable wherever Nigerians are going there to get. Announcing the policy, the health minister said this afternoon the president in council approved a landmark policy set to transform healthcare human resource management in Nigeria. The national policy on health workforce migration addresses the critical challenges facing Nigeria's health human resources. As the AU champion for human resource for health and community health delivery partnership, the president's commitment to a resilient and robust healthcare system is powerfully reflected in this forward-looking policy. Well, according to the policy, it's more than just a response to the ongoing exodus of the healthcare. The push factors, according to them, are inadequate equipment, worsening insecurity, the poor working conditions of the doctors, and the poor salary structure. Well, the minister has now noted that central to this vision was the Nigerian Human Resource Program, which sets a framework for regular reviews of working conditions, ensuring that health workers, especially in rural and underserved areas, receive the recognition and rewards they deserve. By fostering an environment conducive to progressive professional health growth and stability, the policy aims to retain top talent and those that are within Nigeria. There's also a bid for capacity building is at the heart of this policy as well. The policy addresses the return and reintegration of Nigerian health professionals from diaspora. I mean, there's a lot to look at in this particular policy, but I've got my guest on the phone. Good morning, Mr. Larry. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. I hope you're doing well today.
I'm doing very well. How's your weekend?
Yeah, great. We're doing fine.
All right, Mr. Larry, we have the president trying to reduce this gap, this huge gap between the doctors and patients in Nigeria. What we have at the moment is an alarming one doctor to a 9,083 number of patients, as opposed to the recommended one doctor to 600 patients. That's the ratio that is recommended. But what we have in Nigeria is one doctor to 9,000, over 9,000 patients. That's an alarming number. But what's your take on this?
That is why we have a terrible healthcare crisis in Nigeria today. And naturally, one would expect that we should do something about it. I think sometime in 2023, the National Assembly tried to push through what I personally consider an obnoxious bill to hold doctors back for 5 years before they are permitted to leave Nigeria. But of course, that didn't stay true. And now, what you may consider a more comprehensive policy is being suggested. Well, that's very interesting. And I hope it works. But when you look at the ratio you'll find out that we have a very dangerous situation on our hands. If you go to a typical public health institution in Nigeria, it's like a football field with a popular match going on, people everywhere. Those are usually stressed over. And in that circumstance, they can't deliver top-notch medical service. That's one of the challenges we have presently in Nigeria. And when you also look at other things, including the fact that sometimes doctors are targeted by kidnappers and all of that because of the assumption that they have a lot of money, the security situation, the pressure they have, the lack of facilities to do their jobs. That's basic facilities like gloves and even consumables are not there. There's a high level of frustration. When you look at all of the major issues, you find out that being a doctor in Nigeria is an extremely difficult job. And then they compare this to the situation that obtains elsewhere, the security, the good pay, the prospects of enhanced career and all of that. You don't see why they just how to get the healthcare sector to work. And honestly, beyond the healthcare sector, we also need to look at other sectors. But we're looking at the healthcare sector today, and we need to be more innovative and especially more committed beside innovation. The political elites in Nigeria, the political leaders should show more commitment to the healthcare sector. The money that is used for medical tourism can be used to improve our healthcare sector. It's scary. Because when you look at the ratio of approximately 1 to 9,000, WHO recommended 1 doctor to 600 patients. We are doing 1 doctor to 9,000 patients. We are talking of about 1,000% worse than the ratio one would expect. It is not only scary, it's a disastrous situation. And we have to really, really do some creative thinking to get out of this situation, because the brain drain is not going to stop anytime soon. The situations that the push factors are still there. The insecurity is there, the low pay is there, the lack of and all of that, all the factors that push them out of the country, they're still there. So we have to think out of the box to be able to reduce the brain drain, and then also see how we can possibly train more medical doctors. But training them just for them to travel abroad won't solve the problem. We have to look at the 2 factors: retain them, train more, and then, of course, provide facilities for them to be comfortable. We're just talking about doctors. We're not talking about rural doctors. But we don't have doctors in rural areas in Nigeria. We don't have at all. I'm not discussing ratio here. The ratio is almost zero. Doctors don't stay in rural areas in Nigeria for several reasons. So I think we need to really, really not just take a hard look at this. We've always been taking a look at it, but I think there's no political way to solve this problem, because the politicians don't rely on Nigerian hospitals and Nigerian doctors. They travel abroad for malaria and headaches. So I hope this time around that we are going to be able to solve the problem, at least begin to scratch the surface.
All right. So looking at this bill, right, even if it didn't necessarily give us a breakdown of what exactly it's going to do in terms of encouraging diaspora return, but the policy says it's aimed to encourage Nigerian healthcare professionals who are living abroad to return to the country. It also describes how the policy will simplify the registration process, offer incentives to make returning more attractive to those in diaspora. And the goal is to reintegrate them into the Nigerian healthcare system to address the existing gaps and all that. The minister said they're keen to leverage the expertise of the diaspora individuals to bridge gaps in our healthcare system. But the question now is, how then are you going to make Nigeria juicy for someone out there who has already experienced the better system, better working environment, better working conditions, better pay, better incentives? So how then do you plan on making yours a lot more juicy?
One of the things I must say is that some Nigerians may come back if you provide the minimum acceptable conditions for them to come back, because there's also the patriotism factor. There's also the family factor. There is the need to serve one's people. That's a major factor sometimes in making these choices. I know a lot of doctors who don't want to live abroad, but they're living abroad because they feel they can't, that they have tried everything they can to fit into this environment and it's not working. There's the insecurity factor, there's the ill-equipped hospital factor. The way I look at it is that if we don't have to make it juicier, but we have to make it acceptable. We have to make it at least comfortable. If we have hospitals that work, that is, you have the equipment, you have power, you have enough healthcare institutions so that the few that are available will not be overwhelmed. If you have these things and then provide for security, accommodation, the things that will make life reasonably good for them, then what we are not able to do in terms of providing the amenities that they have abroad, then them that have aged parents and uncles and aunties that need them around, and those people insist they don't want to live abroad. I've seen that situation myself. They may want to come back because of those people, but they are not even safe. I mean, even the same uncle or daddy or mom will say, no, don't come back here, they'll kidnap you. So there are challenges that are not even medical that we need to deal with. But then there are also challenges that are medical. So if we want to create that room for the diaspora doctors to come back, we have to at least give them a minimum acceptable level of comfort and environment to work. And we need to also look at innovation. We could have a sort of reverse medical tourism. Reverse in the sense that now we're not talking of patients going abroad, we're talking of doctors coming to Nigeria. We have a lot of medical experts abroad. We have neurosurgeons, we have ophthalmic surgeons, we have different kinds of specialists abroad. We can create a system where, just like Orbis, the eye specialists who fly all over the world to operate on people's eyes inside their aeroplane.
Like exchange of health workers.
Yes, we can encourage Nigerian doctors in diaspora to come. That's why I call it a reverse medical tourism. Let them now bring the tourism here to us. So they are Nigerians, they are our brothers and sisters. They can give us 2 weeks a year, 1 month a year. And then we organize special medical tours or outreaches where they do the things that either we don't have the facilities to do here or the skill to do. And then they also help reduce pressure. That may look like a drop in the ocean, but when you look at what it can do, especially in the area of helping people who don't have the resources to do medical tourism abroad, then we bring life, succor to them here in Nigeria. You'll be surprised how far that will go. So we can begin to think beyond just solving the problem in one fell swoop. It will take some time to do that, but we can develop pockets of attacking the problem so that in the not too distant future, people begin to feel the impact of the innovation. And meanwhile, while we're looking at all of these fancy ideas and suggestions, we need to also look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals speaks to the fact that we need to fix the insecurity problem. We need to equip hospitals. We need to develop primary health care properly. We need to ask ourselves, how can a doctor live in a Nigerian village? The question is how, and it's a very big how, because now we are not just talking of power and the social amenities and good schools, we are also talking about insecurity. So we have to ask some fundamental questions. And the way I look at it, if we don't fix the insecurity problem in Nigeria, we may not be able to solve certain problems. There are problems we can't solve, no matter how hard we try. So the government should also stop this building castles in the air. Unless they want to pretend that we don't have Nigerians living in rural areas. If they agree that we have a larger population of Nigerians living in rural areas and not urban cities, then one of the things they must do is to begin to think of how to solve the insecurity problem so that doctors can live anywhere there is proper provision for them to live.
All right, Mr. Larry, let's look at the non-medical factors why we have doctors who leave the country, because I mean nobody would in their right frame of mind want to go start all over again in another place. But what non-medical reasons could affect that decision?
Uh, of course, of doctors abroad is fantastic. Um, I mean, I think Canada is the second best paying nation after Switzerland from some of the surveys, even ahead of the United States. And you know, a lot of Nigerians are beginning to take a look at Canada. You have Nigerian doctors as far away as Australia and New Zealand. They are not there in large numbers, so we don't talk about them. But I know doctors personally who are working.
Hello.
I actually know 2 doctors that live in Australia. One of them has been there for more than 10 years. And he's a real expert in trauma management. That is a highly sought after expert. And he's a Nigerian. And then the junior brother graduated from medical school and joined him in Australia, of all places. So when you look at the pay, it's a major non-medical factor. When you look at security, it's a major non-medical factor. Then you also look at other things, the opportunities for their children and relations. As a matter of fact, sometimes you begin to ask yourself, what are the real problems? Most of the problems appear not to be medical problems. Before, they were primarily medical issues, frustration with the poor working environment and poor equipment, poor hospital environment, and all of that. Now, things like the remuneration system, insecurity, people just are beginning to realize that you can only live once. I mean, and the people are becoming a lot more conscious of the fact that they want to live while they're at it. They want to enjoy life while they're alive. So they realize that waiting for Nigeria doesn't appear to be working. So a lot of people are under pressure to give quality life to their families, give opportunities to their children. And these are all of the factors that contribute to people moving to these other countries. We are also not talking about the fact that some Middle East countries pay so much money to Nigerian consultants to come and practice there. And that money has become a major factor. It has always been there, but as the disparity between the value of the naira and the dollar and pounds and euro, gets worse, as the gaps get wider, it also becomes more attractive. There was a time $1 was 70 kobo. There was no incentive for a Nigerian to go and work abroad for economic reasons because we were actually better off here. But now that you're talking of 1,600 naira, 1,500 naira, to $1, you find out that just that alone is a mega incentive. And then, of course, you're talking of the situation at home, the inflation. So there are so many push factors working at the same time that are not even medical. And, the people around you will be wondering, so what are you doing here? That's a question people get to hear so often, not only doctors. What are you doing here? Once the people around you think you have the privilege to travel, they will actually meet you after 6 months. You are still here. What are you doing here? It's funny, isn't it? But that is how desperate Nigerians feel. That is that people who have the opportunity to live shouldn't be here. And, our political elite are not thinking about the fact that they have to make Nigeria livable for Nigerians. So it's not just about medical reasons. There are so many non-medical reasons. One of the top reasons is insecurity. There was a time medical practitioners were so targeted for kidnap in the southeastern part of the country and elsewhere that it became an issue. They started removing their stickers, stopped putting stethoscopes on their dashboard. They felt personally threatened. and it's not healthy. So I think we need to also address specifically the non-medical issues while we address the medical issues. There should be a robust implementation plan because they've told us, oh, we want to do this, want to improve this. These things look good on paper, but nobody has told us how they are going to really make it work because that's the problem with Nigeria. It's not about coming up with ideas, people in this country. The big question is who will implement, through to the end so that the implementation work. Is the implementation going to be sustainable? Or is it something that you start and then by the time this administration runs up its first 4 year tenure, some other minister will come or some other person will come and scatter? And I think that is why things are going south almost in every sector. There's a downward spiral that we don't seem to be able to focus. But let us hope that this time around the political leaders will understand that we see to also look of between the hospitals. A lot of doctors complain about that. I've had the privilege of talking with doctors, frequently. I've had the privilege of being a facilitator in a lot of their programs, talking about legal issues in healthcare and all that. And when I talk with them privately, they are distressed that Nigerians will equip an Asoro hospital with billions of naira, and then all the big men, as we call them here, will still go abroad,
the country,
money, and yet they go and do their training and come back, and they come back and they can't practice. So I remember when this laser surgery, all of that started, Nigerian doctors would go abroad, acquire the skills, and they come here, they don't have the equipment to use the skills they acquired. And it's a shame, So the person feels like this is frustrating, and it's a skill. Remember that if you don't use a skill, you need to, go do a refresher to begin to use it again. So Nigerians will travel, and then they'll come back, and they will not have the opportunity to use their skills. There are teaching hospitals in Nigeria that do not actually offer laser surgery, and it's embarrassing. The Almighty University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital, I say it authoritatively because I asked last week because of a patient. They said they don't have laser surgery facility, and that is a shame. But if you get to Enugu and other towns in the southeast and elsewhere, private hospitals conduct laser surgery. Doctors that work in these institutions have this equipment in their private hospitals, but we don't have them in tertiary institutions, referral institutions. So when a resident goes to India or wherever to acquire new skills, the person comes back to the teaching hospital and the person cannot use the skills acquired. That is the art facilities for our doctors to work. That is a huge problem.
Mr. Larry, I was going to touch lights before you went on this issue of medical tourism. I wanted to talk about if we equip the hospitals enough in terms of how much we're putting out in the budget for the health sector. Is it enough?
I don't even just want to look at the budget, apart from the fact that we don't usually prioritize our budgetary allocations. We don't do budgetary allocations here based on needs or based on global recommendations. If you look at education, healthcare, agriculture, there are some things we need to prioritize. And then you also look at the issue of corruption. You see, the problem with Nigeria is not even how much you budget. The other problem is how much is actually released. The third problem is how much that gets to the project in question. So you may budget money and it looks good. And then at the end of the year, you see that they say, oh, we had maybe 70% or 60% budget implementation. And that is really not right, because when we talk about appropriation, budget appropriation, it's a law. It's a law. It's not just a recommendation passed by National Assembly. We're a lawless country, because if you have a budget, it means that you have actually established by law that this should be done. But you see, people will just somehow have budgets. They use it as a guiding document. They don't understand the implications, the legal implications of passing a budget. And when they finish passing the budget, they will either refuse to release the money, or by the time they finish releasing the money, corruption would have happened to the money. We hear that sometimes ministries and departments and agencies have to even grease palms to get their budget approved and released to them subsequently. Yeah, so it's not just about whether the allocation is enough. It's also about the corruption that happens to the money. And when you look at all of those issues, both the budgeting process, the corruption, the contracting process, the even choosing the right companies and organizations to execute the contract, when you look at all of these things, you understand why we are not making progress. There was a time there was this big, huge scandal about a company supplying refurbished equipment to tertiary medical institutions in Nigeria. Very critical equipment as important as, scanners and all of those massive equipment, that they brought refurbished equipment. Why would they do that? And then the hospitals actually accepted it. And very often there is no after sales service plan. Okay. So we have a myriad of problems plaguing the system. It's not just about the budget, the amount itself not being enough. But I can tell you, without missing words, that very often the money is not released. And if the money is released, corruption will happen to the money. Inefficiency and ineptitude and nepotism and all kinds of things will happen to the budget. So much so that most of the time we don't even get up to 20% of the benefit of the budgetary allocation. That's my own assessment. By the time you look at all of the things that will happen, if you get 30%, you've done very well. So we have problems that are not really just medical. We have problems that are beyond medical, that affects the challenge in the healthcare sector. Just like the same problems affect every other sector in Nigeria.
There was a time when Nigeria used to be, the heart of medical tourism. We had people, nationals from other countries flying into Nigeria, whether it's UCH or you're going to Lagos or wherever, or you're going to Luth. Whatever the case, there was a time we used to be at the top of it. We used to have it all. So what exactly happened? Because maybe we need to look at where the issues are. Is it corruption at its finest that ate us to this point, or is there more to it?
Bad leadership happened. Because at that time that Nigeria was functioning, it was a thing of pride to be a Nigerian, first of all. We were the giants of Africa. Though even at that time we are complaining, but we are still the giants. We had a strong currency. Since we are working generally, the doctors were not talking of going abroad to work because they were doing well here. Yeah. Everybody was doing well. Nigeria had functional systems, not really very functional in terms of things like power and all of that. But then if you didn't have power, you could afford to buy petrol. At that time, working with it, but at least it's much, much better than what we have now. So leadership happened to us. Bad leadership happened to us. First of all, when you say bad leadership happened to us, you find out that when the military started their incursions into politics, you find out that they were not trained to make policies. They were trained to fight wars. And they brought that mentality into leadership in Nigeria. That's why we had task forces everywhere. And we had phrases like with immediate effect reverberating in our heads. So the military brought that. So with that, long-term planning flew out of the window. This is one of the few countries in the world that doesn't seem to have any plan at all. I mean, some other countries have 100-year plans, 50-year plans, rolling plans. Nigeria doesn't have any plan at all. That's even the vision we sometimes claim to have. We don't even remember. Most people don't know, both leaders and followers. It's a vision 2030. Who knows I mean, if you ask 100 Nigerians what is the vision 2030, and 2030 said they don't know. And when I said they don't know, I mean they don't know. The bad leadership happened to Nigeria, and that bad leadership was aggravated by corruption, nepotism, tribalism, religious bigotry, and all of the bad things were thrown into the mix. And with this thing came downward spiral in the economic and social conditions around us. So by the time the devaluation of Naira started happening, it became more fashionable to earn foreign exchange. Earning foreign exchange means that if you work abroad, you become a don here when you come back for Christmas or if you come back to do projects. And then apart from the currency gap widening, we also started seeing decay in infrastructure. We started seeing the latest one being insecurity. That is terrible. So the truth of the matter is that Nigeria happened to us. Bad leadership happened to us. And that bad leadership created circumstances that makes it impossible for institutions to work well. We are still champions when it comes to skill. I mean, if you look at the number of doctors, there is no country in Africa that has anywhere near the number of doctors we have. If you look at the skills of the individual doctors, we are still the Oga at the top. When you look at the number of Nigerians who are driving powerful medical institutions abroad, not just working, driving them, being, vice president of a medical facility in US, being the president of a facility, being the head of a department, we are everywhere with special skills. But because of the condition that they have imposed on us at home, we cannot possibly they come here and practice. That is, our doctors can't possibly come here and practice. So it's bad leadership that happened to us. And unfortunately, the leadership is still not doing anything significant to improve the overall situation in Nigeria that will enable us get to that point where the skilled doctors will come back and work in the proper health institutions. UCH was an iconic health center in Africa. We were told that the president of, I think, Egypt came there for healthcare at some point. But I know that our healthcare institutions attracted people, especially from West Africa and Central Africa. Our universities actually attracted students from all over Africa then. We were like the United States of Africa. Unfortunately, now Nigerians are going to universities in Ghana to get better degrees. And that is what tells you how much bad leadership has happened to us. So I think if you just want to call a spade, I think it's bad leadership that just destroyed what we are building as a nation. So from the military incursions to politics that don't work because of rigging of elections and an electorate that is not enlightened, and then we throw up petitions that are basically businessmen playing politics. That is, people doing business with politics who don't care about the people and their welfare. All of these things just came together to create situations that makes it impossible for our healthcare institutions to thrive. And that is why we are not discussing medical tourism to Nigeria. We are discussing medical tourism from Nigeria.
All right, so you're listening. You have the opportunity to join the conversation. 0808 312 8618 is the number to call. 0808 312 8618. Call us up and let us know what you think about our conversation this morning. We're having a lot of doctors leaving the country, and the president has said that they're trying as much as they can to make Nigeria a lot more attractive to about 12,400 doctors who have already left the country. So let's get your thoughts on that, right? 0808 312 8618. We're also live on YouTube at Voice of the People Abuja. Join us. We're live on YouTube. 0808 312 8618 is the number. Voice of the People Abuja is the YouTube channel. Go ahead and join us and let's have a conversation. Meanwhile, all right, we have a call here. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Kesiri. Thank God for a new day. We're grateful that we're here for this new week.
All right.
So,
what's your name?
My name is Nancy.
Nancy.
Yeah.
All right. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. So I'm listening to the discussion, especially about the healthcare, and my heart bleeds because I am kind of a victim of, this situation right now. I'm going to actually mention like National Hospital, the ICU has no equipment. They actually have no business being called an ICU because the smallest of items required in ICU, they do not have. I lost my mom in April due to this. So thinking about bringing our medical practitioners back to Nigeria it's a dream that's not going to work if we don't fix the hospitals. No doctor wants to come and, you can't even, the tables are broken. You don't have equipment. You don't have, as you see people sharing stethoscopes. You come to the hospital, they don't even have pulse oximeters in their clinics. When you go to, when you speak to a nurse, the nurse is so demotivated. She can't do anything. She just throws all her frustrations on you because she doesn't have equipment, and then she's doing the job of 10 people. So it's a myriad of problems. We are talking about providing equipment for hospitals, but what happens with the procurement process? The issues are just unbelievable. And at the end of the day, a hospital like National Hospital will allow a patient to pass because they don't have the equipment and they won't inform you. When you go to another hospital and say, we can't do this, take this patient somewhere else. But you bring your patient, the ICU, you can't have the service. And then they won't advise you, go somewhere else until it's too late. So they bringing back our doctors, I tell you, it's a real tall dream. And I pray that the nation will think seriously about equipping our hospitals. Even here at the Wuse General Hospital, you go there, I took a patient, it was an emergency, and they said, we are not going to touch the patient until you go and buy bleach, you buy all sorts of cleaning agents. I'm like, this is an emergency.
Wow.
And they said, you can't do anything. So it's such a risky situation that we find ourselves in. And I was talking and saying, no, I can't do this. I've paid for this. And someone called me aside and said, madam, if you don't go out, this was about 11 p.m. If you don't go across and buy this bleach, cotton wool, and a few other items, cleaning items, this patient is going to die here. And I had no choice but to go and do that. That's where we are. So please, they have to first of all go back, take an audit of the hospitals, look for serious procurement processes to be handled before we talk about bringing our doctors. Otherwise, they will simply come, earn large salaries, do next to nothing, and simply move back. That is the few of them that will agree to come. It's really pathetic, and I pray they are listening. Somebody should help Nigerians. It's really crazy. Thank you. Do have a good day, and well done, Mr. Larry.
All right, sir, Mr. Larry. Thank you so much, Nancy, for your call.
This is disheartening, but I can relate with her story. I can relate with her story because I've had the misfortune of taking a patient, a young man that had a nail strike his eye directly. I took him to hospital, and two doctors on call were playing chess, and they were not listening. I had to practically and literally upturn the chessboard for them to realize that there was an emergency. I'm not joking. I'm talking of me. She said something that we don't have any business calling those units intensive care units. I would say something that a lot of people may really not understand because it sounds like arrogance. But this, my friend that practices in Australia told me, he said something that really shocked me. He said that our hospital is so good that if you come into that hospital alive, the only way you can die is that you decide to die. That is, he said that their trauma management unit said that if you bring a human being in bits and the heart is working, they have equipment to bypass the heart, bypass almost any organ in a few minutes. We were discussing healthcare in Nigeria, and we were laughing about the fact that we have an emergency in Nigeria. People will just be walking around telling you to buy bleach, buy cotton wool. You have an emergency abroad, you see it in movies. They will be running, that is with the patient from the ambulance. They are running with the drip being set, that are walking and running at the same time. In Nigeria, people will be playing drafts in the place, making phone calls, watching movies, because they have even given up on the system. They will tell you that even the government that puts them there is not interested in the people living. You have intensive care unit. You don't have anything that is able to provide even ordinary care. How much more intensive care? So it's sad when she was telling the story. And when you say national hospital, there is an impression it gives that it should be the primus inter pares when it comes to healthcare in Nigeria. It should be the very first among equals. It should be a place, our national hospital should be a place where our president should go to, where the governors should go to. But we should also have regional hospitals, and even states should aspire to have state-of-the-art hospitals. They don't just have the vision. We don't have these things. We have some wonderful hospitals in Lagos, private initiatives. So why don't we do PPP? There are hospitals abroad that are willing to do business. If you can't run your hospitals, why don't you provide for the facilities and get some of these guys to help you run them and transfer the skills? But is it rocket science to procure disposables and all of those things? It is not. That's why I keep saying that corruption happens to us. Because when you get the procurement process right, what of the inventory management process? Do you know that people sell drugs from Nigerian hospitals? Let me even share an experience. Sorry, I'll do that quickly. That I had the misfortune of having to take care of an asthma patient who was under extreme attack in my village one Christmas. They called me as in somebody who had a car who could help. We left my place at 12 midnight, and I went to 3 different hospitals, private hospitals. Nobody had inhaler in a hospital. Keep that aside. I now drove to a teaching hospital and got there at about 1 a.m. or after 1. I said, okay, teaching hospital must have. I got to the teaching hospital and they told me that there was no inhaler in the teaching hospital pharmacy. I said no. Then when I started shouting to report that I started talking about Savicom, about writing petitions. How can you not have inhaler here? The pharmacist on duty actually said, okay, wait. Called someone, they whispered to themselves, and this lady came back and right in my presence brought out an inhaler from the shelf and dropped it there.
Whoa.
And I was asking her, so what were you thinking before? You're a pharmacist. This person may die. Because I realized that shouting won't solve the problem. I paid for the inhaler and fled. This happened that then University Hospital at Newi. I like being specific. I have the dates, I have the facts. I reported them, and nothing had changed. So these are the kind of even institutions we have. The healthcare workers are too far gone, and corruption happens. Later, I was told that there are drugs that somehow they hoard it. They don't want to give it to you because the price is somewhat lower in those hospital pharmacies than in the market. Bad things happen to people. Drugs are sold. All sorts of things happen. This is Nigeria. It is sad. You can't be talking about bringing back doctors when nothing else works. The hospitals don't work. The drugs are not there. Things as simple as little as cotton wool are not available. Right. And you want them to come back. Come back to do what?
All right. We have a comment on YouTube. It says, bringing the doctors back is not the problem. What is the plan for these doctors when they return? Even the ones in Nigeria are looking for an escape route because they are not taken care of. All right. Thank you so much for your comment this morning. Mr. Larry, our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yeah, it's my privilege. I'm sad, really. I'm sad because I don't like talking about this because I'm surrounded by doctors in my family, and I know too much. Like the white chicken said, I know too much about this, and anytime I discuss it, it brings back memories I would rather forget. But I hope we are listening to the voice of the people. Our political leaders, especially, they shouldn't think that we are just talking. I mean, this is the agony of Nigerians that we are putting out in public domain. I hope they are listening to the voice of the people, and I hope the people are also listening so that we can place a demand on these people who make decisions for us to save our lives, literally speaking. Get the thanks for the great job you do, and may God just help Nigeria.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Larry. Have yourself a wonderful week.
You too.
All right, Nonso. Sports Bishop, Nonso
Good
Arinzechi. Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning to you, Gessie. It's a wonderful conversation because I can relate, I just started reminiscing about my late mom who went through at the National Hospital. It was really porous, no drugs. Most of these medical practitioners who want to, they want to just delay you so that you won't be able to, you'll be able to go to their private hospital instead of going to the national hospital. So these are the things we argue about, but it is what it is. Hopefully, we will overcome.
All right. At this point in time, the people that are overcoming, it looks like Chelsea. They crushed the Wolves 6-2 yesterday to give Enzo Maresca his first Premier League win as Blues boss, while the Newcastle rescued a controversial 1-1 at Bournemouth on Sunday. I mean, EPL is back fully, and there's so much going on in football. But Chelsea did something yesterday for me. 6-2. What's your take on that?
Yeah, for Chelsea, it's a big win. I'm gonna be sincere with you. Nobody gave Enzo Maresca a chance, to go to Wolverhampton Wanderers and get that kind of result. But I think Chelsea fans should brace up this season. There'll be a lot of goals scored, but there'll be a lot of goals conceded. I think it reminds me of Jurgen Klopp when he joined Liverpool for the first time, where he plays open and expansive football. So I was quite surprised. 6 goals, none in Madueke scoring a hat trick. Chelsea fans, I don't think it's the Wood yet, so there's still a lot of cracks in the hole. I think this will just really paper the cracks and give this man some time to rebuild his team. But man, Chelsea fans will praise a little bit of long swing. If you see result like 5-4, 6-5, 4-3, but the way Chelsea are playing is too open, too exposed. And for a big team like Chelsea, I think their fans will be seen at the edge of their seat all through.
They'll do in this particular match. We'll watch and see how all that plays out. Meanwhile, Man United, I don't know how their performance was over the course of the weekend for you. What do you think?
Didn't you watch the first leg, their first game of the season, that they struggled to win? It was almost a miracle. I don't know how they got that big to Joshua Zexi late in that encounter. And I was telling you, the my fans shouldn't celebrate. That win was at home in front of your home fan was as good as a loss. And they said, no, it's a win. A win is a win. I tell you, Brighton has brought them back to earth. To be sincere with you, Man United was second best in the encounter. It could have been worse for them if Danny Welbeck was more clinical. He put his leg in. But to be sincere with you, man, it's result tells the whole story. Man United at some point they will say they're rebuilding, but how many years have been happening at the club? This is third season. You can't be how long does it take to build a house when you have the right resources? For me, my fans should brace up another long season and wait them, except they will take the strict rules by sacking Eric Ten Hag and getting a manager who can begin to build up. Because with him, I don't think this team can compete for long. Scratch that, or even make it to the top 4 at the end of the season.
All right. Any more sports stories for us to catch up on?
Absolutely. We hear that our girls under 20, the Flamingo girls, are in camp in Bogota. They beat Australia in a friendly game 2-1 on Friday. They were playing today 9:30 p.m. Nigerian time against Mexico. Their final friendly match before the tournament begins on the 2nd of September at the Under 20 World Cup in Colombia. We wish them all the best of luck as we prepare for that one. For Nigeria, it was a bad day in the continent, talking about the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. JJ defeated Economics 2-1 in Benin Republic and have dumped out Economics from the CAF Competitions Cup, winning 3-2 on Argate. Same for a certain Ramos Stars of Ikene. They were beaten by 2-0 in Morocco.
We lost that, but we'll try to re-establish contact with Nonso right about now so we can finish that conversation. Um, all right. We're trying to re-establish contact with Nonso so we can continue on the sports bit. Okay. Hello.
Yeah, like I said, Enugu Rangers, I can hear. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I said Enugu Rangers and anybody, two teams left in the continent. Anybody will take on Etoile, Finlandia, or Burkina Faso, while Enugu Rangers will take on Sapranca Esperance of Sapranca Esperance as well in that encounter of Angola. So one team knocked out the CAF Champions League, one team knocked out the CAF Commission Cup. It is what it is. Like you said, unfortunately, one man in Capitan, talking about Aaron Akodri, has been fined $5,000. Yes, by the World Tennis tournament for failing to feature in two of the games. So we hear he has appealed that at the tribunal, but we'll wait and see how things pan out for him. So not too good day for this weekend for Nigerian sports. But the only good news I can tell you, please take this to the bank. Our Paralympics athletes have arrived in France for the Paralympics. By the time the Paralympics begin, I can assure you that they will win medals. The last time they won 10 medals.